All right, Chair Mitchell, we are ready to go.
All right. Happy afternoon of Tuesday, February 4th already. Good afternoon, everyone. And so we'll go ahead and get started on our ASEC committee today. I'll call the meeting to order at 1:10. And we will start with our consent agenda. Has everyone had the opportunity to read over the minutes? Oh, wait. Roll call, right, Evan? You always stop me. I can see your face. Okay. Evan,
Thank
how
you.
about a roll call first? Let's make sure we've got all the right players.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. Trustee Nelsestion,
Here.
Trustee Larios,
Here.
Trustee Hall,
Here.
Trustee Showalter,
Here.
and Chair Mitchell.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Okay, so back to the consent agenda. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read the meeting minutes. I see some head nods. Okay, so could I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 18th, 2024?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you for the second. Any changes to the minutes? Corrections? Okay, seeing none. Then Evan, I will have you do a formal approval of the meeting minutes, please. Roll call.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. Trustee Nelsestion,
Aye.
Trustee Hall,
Aye.
Trustee Larios,
Aye.
Trustee Showalter,
Aye.
and Chair Mitchell.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Chair Mitchell, if I may, I have a couple announcements for the meeting, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So as a friendly reminder, this is our first ASAC committee meeting with the requirement from the state to record and post our meetings. So I am making sure that I remind at every one of our subcommittee meetings, and I will remind at the board meeting, that this meeting will be recorded and posted on our website. So I just want to make sure the trustees and staff keep that in mind as we have our robust discussion. Historically, we've been a little more relaxed in our subcommittee meetings. And I think we want that relaxed, collaborative environment, but we just want to be mindful that this is now being recorded and, places of higher education are in the microscope right now, as we all know. So just want to be mindful. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much for that very important reminder. So we will go to the first item on discussion, the introduction to the Wolf Ride and National Student Exchange.
And Cameron, would you like to share, or do you want me? Okay, let me give you the ability to. Oh, you might actually already have it.
Okay, let me try. Oh, I'm gonna send a request to you.
Okay. But I put you in there. Oh,
Okay.
there we go.
Is that working for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Move this up. All right, so my name is Cameron Mortensen. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Executive Assistant to the Vice President for Student Affairs here at WOU. And I'm going to talk about the two programs that I have the opportunity to oversee in our office, which are Wolf Ride and the National Student Exchange Program, or the NSE program. So first up, I'll talk about Wolf Ride, and I have it set up so that it's in the same presentation. If you have questions, I'll leave time at the end. I'll try and also keep my eye on you all as well, just in case. So Wolf Ride is our safe ride program here at WOU. It provides complimentary and reliable shuttle service for students. And the idea is that we're giving them this option instead of having to walk, especially late at night, and if it gets darker earlier this time of year. So otherwise, they would have to walk late at night and risk their safety or possibility of assault, as well as expand access to community resources too. And I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like as far as like our current hours and why we adjust hours, things like that. Right now, we have 2 daytime shifts, Mondays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to noon. And then evening hours are Monday through Saturday, so 6 days a week from 4:30 to 10:30 p.m. It is funded almost entirely through student incidental fees, and so this does become something that the incidental fee committee does review every year. And then we do have a small revenue that generates from reservations that goes towards our overall budget. The majority of our budget is towards student pay. And so again, that's where I would say almost all of our budget goes towards. And then we have a small amount for services and supplies, which is general upkeep of the vehicle, things like that. And then this year we did get to implement an app for the first time as well. So again, I'll kind of talk about that later on, but that was a very exciting project to have been a part of. So why is this program important? Again, the biggest reason why is making sure that we are giving students an opportunity to take advantage of this SAFE program. It's no additional cost for students because it's included in their incidental fees. So they don't have to pay to use this, taking down those hurdles for students to utilize this. And it is also something that's shared about during tours and recruitments. Parents especially want to know that their students will have a way to get around safely. So that usually is a big I would say a big smile point for parents when I bring that up. They're like, oh, okay, they have an opportunity to do something safely and go somewhere and hang out with friends, but make sure that they get back safe. And again, it also supports with basic needs. So for example, a lot of students use the Polk Community Resource Center. And so their hours usually cut off around 5 or so. So that's why we implemented daytime hours so that students can go use those community resources if they need to, if they don't have a car of their own, things like that. So increasing autonomy and equity for all of our students. It is also wheelchair accessible. So again, making sure it's as accessible as possible for all of our students. I like to say that it's kind of a door-to-door service. And so it's different from the trolley. It's just a different resource for students to use. So instead of having to walk to or from bus stations or, think about the timing and stuff like that, they can just be picked up at a certain place within Monmouth Independence and then be dropped off at that place, as long as it's within our service area. It is also available for campus use to rent. So that's that small revenue that I was talking about. So clubs, departments, organizations can rent it for a smaller fee than I think it's less than the OSU rate. But again, it's only one van. So if you need multiple vans, they'll probably still go through OSU, but gives them another option. And so far for summer and fall, we have had 41 reservations. Most of that is over the summer with Upward Bound. They're our biggest department that reserves them. So now the app, this is a screenshot of what it looks like when students open the app. So because we got an enhancement from IFC last year, we were able to implement this app for the first time. So there is a side for the drivers to use. So very similar to I say it's similar to Uber or Lyft. So they'll get the ride request on their side, and then the riders can request rides. And I'll show some screenshots of what it looks like. Again, accessible with screen readers, so making sure all of our students can utilize it. So the app developer that we use, they're called Downtowner. It's the same company that hosts OSU's driver app portal. But because of our campus size and our fleet size of one van, we were able to get a pretty big discount on it, which was really great. They don't usually work with campuses as small as us, but I reached out and got an answer that they were able to give us this discount, which was really great. And so we launched it during PAC Welcome Week before classes opened. And so students were able to download the app via QR code. It's available on Android or Apple. And then students can still request rides via text or call if they want to. So if they're not able to get the app or if they're not able to use that app for whatever reason, they can still go the old-fashioned way as well. So this is what it looks like on the driver side. So a big selling point for me when I was looking through different developers was that this one, safety-wise for our drivers, they really only interact with the phone when they are stopped in the vehicle. So if they're waiting for a ride, they can accept the ride just by pressing accept, and then they don't have to touch the phone until they get to the destination to pick them up. They'll press picked up, and then the same thing for dropping off. So they're not interacting with the phone or touching the phone when they're driving. And so we were able to use this to, again, have those daytime hours with just one driver because they don't have to have that co-pilot person navigating texts or calls, things like that. So again, they can click on directions if they need it with the little map icon. They can call the person, things like that. And then as more rides come up, they'll show up underneath, but they're kind of grayed out. So it'll intuitively think about if they can merge rides or pick up multiple people at a time, depending on where the rides are going. And then this is what it looks like on the student rider side. So it is accessible with our SSO, so they just sign on with their portal. So again, making sure that only WOU students are using this. Outside folks can't use it if they don't have a WOU login. They say how many passengers they need. They can also select if they're using the wheelchair lift so that our drivers know ahead of time. And then it'll give them an estimated time of when they're going to get picked up, how long it'll take. Usually the wait time is around 3 to 5 minutes, depending on where they're at. And then they would just press continue and they get live updates as the driver is coming to them, which is really nice. So about 160 students have downloaded the app. We're trying to get more students, but as of right now, that's where we're at. It does lead to a smoother process for our student drivers, especially tracking wise. In the past, they were doing paper manually tracking each ride, which is okay, but it's not super reliable. Again, it's extra work on them. So this just streamlines that for them so they don't have to keep worrying about that. And again, making sure it's as equitable and accessible as possible. With students' mental health right now, sometimes calling or texting can be a big hurdle to use this program, this resource. So we want them to be safe. We want them to have this option. And so just clicking buttons on an app can sometimes be way easier for some students. So they have that option if they want. And then just to compare this fall to last fall. Last fall, we had about 157 total rides completed. Now that does include multiple repeat customers. We have a lot of people that use it regularly, but the total rides was 157, and we had 181% increase from this fall with the app, which we had 442 total rides. So huge increase, which is so exciting. And about 10% of those rides came from the new daytime hours. So again, students are showing that they want to use this. Most common locations: grocery stores. Students don't want to carry on their bags. I wouldn't either, especially again with weather and it getting dark so much. And then off-campus housing, Polk Community Resource Center as well. And our most popular time is usually 5 to 7 p.m. That does vary a little bit, but generally I would say that's the most popular time. And that is my pause for a wolf ride. Evan, do you have a preference? Should we wait for all questions at the end, do you think?
I think if folks have questions about Wolf Ride, this might be a
Yeah.
good time to ask about Wolf Ride.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions for Cameron on that?
I have a quick question about that. Who gives the rides? Did you say they were students?
Yeah, there are student employees. We have 7 students total for this year, or for this term rather. And so they go through training and driver authorization with our campus public safety team. So they take the OSU online van safety course, making sure that they can pass all of that. And then we also get a driving record as well. So public safety approves them, and then I train them. Our previous, rollover student employees train them as well. So we have all student led.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I see Trustee Hall has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Cameron. I just wanted to ask more out of curiosity. So I see that there's you said it was an 187% increase. So from last year to this year, right? If we just project, there's not really a pattern because we only have 2 years, but if we assume that it's only going to get used more because there's an app, do you ever see the possibility of getting more than one van to fill the need for students to want to use this rideshare app or safe ride?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's definitely something that could be considered if we do get to that point. I think right now, even with more rides being used, it doesn't look like there's a lot of overlap. So we're not getting over that like 5-minute wait period that we're looking at. But I mean, I would love to be in a place where we need more vans. I'm not sure when that would be, but I would love to think that that's possible.
Cool, thank you. Just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any additional questions, so thank you so much, and we'll flow into the next topic.
Perfect. So now pivoting to National Student Exchange, or NSE. So this is a study away program. I try and emphasize the away and not abroad, and I'll kind of get into the nuances with that. But this is a nonprofit organization that is nationwide, including parts of Canada as well. So there are 170 campuses that are part of NSE, part of the consortium, and that is through the United States, Canada, Guam, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. So North America, and then our US territories as well. And so the idea is that we're giving students an opportunity to study away at another campus, get out of their comfort zone, gain more confidence, kind of gain that sense of independence as well. But they remain on track with graduation. It's as low cost and accessible as possible. So again, kind of setting it aside from study abroad, which can have a lot more added program fees, we really try and make sure that this is as low cost as possible. So they're paying around the same that they would pay if they were here at WOU. And so the participating campuses, again, about 170 total. It does ebb and flow a little bit, but that's the average that we're at, can send and receive students to different campuses. So we have students coming to us, and then we send out students as well to other campuses. So a little bit of history with NSE here at WOU. We've actually been part of NSE for quite some time. Looking back, it looks like we joined around 2006, 2007 academic year. And so this is our 18th year, if I did my math correctly, being part of the program, which is really exciting. And so around 2010 to 2019, we were sending out about 10 to 15 students per year. Obviously, COVID halted that. And so we've been trying to kind of grow back our numbers since then, making sure that students know that this is a resource. I've talked to other coordinators at other campuses, and they usually say that NSE is like the hidden gem on campus, but we don't want it to be hidden. We want students to know that this is something that they can do. So again, really trying to get the word out there, but we're still working on those numbers. It is important to note that per NSE guidelines, so we get guidelines from the headquarters team, a campus our size is expected to be sending out about 5 students per year. So we're still above that number. This past year, we sent out, I believe, 11 or 12 students. So we're still definitely above those numbers, but the more the merrier. We want students to take advantage of this while they're here. So I'm working on growing those numbers. I also love to toot my horn that we are one of 2 campuses in Oregon that are part of this. So it is only us and SOU that are Oregon NSE campuses. So making WOU as unique as possible. So my role as an NSE coordinator, I advise both outbound and inbound students. So the students that are going from WOU to other campuses, I'll work with them when they're exploring different campuses, figuring out what they want to do, what they're looking for, why they want to pursue this, and kind of help them narrow things down. It's usually students being like, oh my gosh, this is great that there's so many options, but how do I decide where I want to go when there's 170 to pick from? So again, making sure that we're figuring out what their goals are, and then if they want to go somewhere warm or somewhere where there's mountains or somewhere on the coast, things like that, we can narrow those down. And then inbound students that are coming to us, once they've been placed at WOU, placement usually happens around March time. I am acting as a liaison when they're planning to come here, and then also once they're on campus. So I usually meet with them to have an orientation, make sure that they know all the resources on campus, they know where to go for certain things, and I'll make sure that they know I have an open door policy if they have any questions. For both inbound and outbound students, I also make sure that they're keeping up with eligibility, making sure deadlines are met, they're turning in all of their paperwork, things like that. And then I also work with other partners on campus to make sure that we have as streamlined processes as possible. This is a work in progress, but we have definitely improved some things the past year or so. So I work directly with financial aid, the business office, registrar, advising, and other folks, but those are the main ones. And I get to represent WOU within the NSE consortium and at the annual conference as well. So NSE, I love talking about NSE. And so this is just some general reasons why it's super important. It's definitely not everything, but I try to make it as simple as possible. So again, the biggest thing that students are looking for is low cost options. So when they're on exchange, they can choose to either pay WOU tuition rates at however many credits they're taking at their host campus, or they can pay in-state tuition rate at the host campus. So even if they're not a resident of that state, because we're part of the NSE consortium, any school within NSE, they get to pay in-state tuition rate if they choose to do that payment option. And then housing is always paid to the host campus if they live on campus. So most of our outgoing students do choose to pay WOU tuition. We're usually the more low-cost option. Sometimes for students who are out of state here, it's actually cheaper for them to do host pay because they get to pay in-state tuition somewhere else, which is nice. And sometimes our incoming students also pay our tuition. So they're doing host on their end because we're cheaper than them. This is especially true. We have 2 students this term from Hawaii, and their tuition is very high in Hawaii. And so they were very excited to pay Oregon tuition rates. And then federal financial aid always applies when they're on exchange. So anything through FAFSA, like the loans, Pell Grant, Oregon Opportunity Grant, things like that, that will always apply. And then WOU scholarships, so things like the Merit Scholarship or the Diversity Commitment Scholarship, those apply if they're on home pay. So if they're paying WOU tuition, they still get those scholarships as well. It is also accessible and available for undocumented students, DACA recipients, Dream US scholars, and ORSA recipients. This is usually not the case for study abroad. So again, making sure that this is open for all of our students if they want to participate. And then student success, so retention is also a really important piece of NSE. There is a study from 2018 that I can attach the link to if anyone's interested, but it found that specifically first generation students are more likely to graduate if they are at a greater distance from home at the campus that they're going to. So for a lot of our students, they grew up around here or they're still living at home, things like that. So they might not have the option to go away long term, but this can still give them an option to get that away time experience, which means that they can potentially be more likely to graduate. And then from the student side, again, lots of benefits. The biggest ones that I hear are going to be the personal reasons, so gaining confidence, independence. Again, especially for those who live at home or really close to home, they haven't had a chance to travel. This might be the first time that they get to travel or the first time they're traveling alone. So they come back and always reflect, okay, if I did that, I can do these other things, or I can, potentially move away after I graduate or pursue grad school or things like that. Again, also gaining more cultural experience, exposure to different people, different areas, different cultures, and more capital, again, especially for our students who haven't had the chance to travel very much. Some academic and professional benefits as well, especially for hands-on experiences. A lot of the schools will have different course options for students depending on what major they're in. Like this past fall, we had a student who's aquarium science major here at WOU, and they went to Monterey State University in California with a huge research aquarium over there. So they got to actually work hands-on at an aquarium, which was really, really cool. They can investigate grad schools. Sometimes they're trying to figure out if they want to live somewhere, but they're not quite sure. So they can kind of test either the school itself or at least the area. And then this is also something that I really encourage students, if they do participate, to put on their resume, because it can really set them apart, be a talking point for employers when they're in certain interviews and things like that. So we did have 11 students who went to different campuses from WOU. And those students went to New Mexico, Virgin Islands, California, New Jersey, New York, Hawaii. One went to Southern Oregon, which at first I was like, let's try somewhere else, but she really wanted to try their film program. So she had a very specific reason for choosing Southern. And then I'll talk a little bit about this. We did have 2 students who did do study abroad through NSE, and I'll talk why we limit this, but they were able to go to Greece and Spain. Our Spain student just came back, and then our student in Greece is there for winter and spring quarters. So there are opportunities for study abroad through NSE. I do try and limit this for a few reasons. Overhead, making sure that they are keeping up with everything is definitely a lot more because there's a lot more paperwork that's involved in making sure that they can go to, get their visas and things like that. The cost usually means that they have to pay the host campus's tuition too. So we aren't able to get as much tuition paid with that program. Not with all of them, but a lot of the study abroad options will only have host pay. And I also want to make sure that we're focusing on the goal of NSE, which is domestic exchange. But I'll usually cap it at like 2 students if they want to do study abroad. And then students came to us from Hawaii, Florida, and Mexico. We had 4 students coming to us. Again, I'm trying to make sure that students in other schools know about WOU. And so presenting at any webinars that NSE has, things like that. But usually we're sending out more students than we're getting in. So. And then I will end with just kind of thinking about NSE at WOU moving forward. So I do want to focus on increasing funding and access for students. So while this is definitely the most low cost and accessible option for students, there are obviously additional costs that come in with travel or differences in tuition, things like that. So making sure that we can help out students if they need it. So historically, we have gotten a $1,000 grant from the WOU Foundation through the competitive grant program, which is amazing, and that usually helps cover the application cost for up to 5 students. And then I am looking to pursue external grants or external funding to support students with tuition, travel, cost of living increases, things like that. There's usually a lot of external scholarships for study abroad, but not so much the study away or domestic piece. So as students are looking for scholarships, they just don't exist really. So trying to have something within our university that could support students would be really great. And some challenges or opportunities if we're thinking silver lining. So WOU's limited study abroad opportunities has made NSE a little bit more well-known, which is great. Students are looking for these options and kind of tracking me down, which has been really great. But I'm not set up to be a study abroad program office. And so just kind of thinking about what that looks like. But again, we want to make sure students at least know that this is an option if study abroad might not be as feasible. And I'm also in communication with Paige as well as she's trying to figure out the study abroad piece. So just trying to figure out how we can be most helpful and supportive. And then this might be a little obvious to share, but some changes in the U.S. administration, I think, are leading to students worried about traveling. So just keeping that in mind, I'm trying to work with the students who are interested. And if they have concerns, just talking through that with them, making sure that they have a safe space to talk through things. So we're not quite sure what it's going to look like moving forward. But I'm in communication with other coordinators and they're feeling similarly. So we're just trying to figure out how to best support our students. And that is it. I think I finished up in about, well, less than 30 minutes. That's good.
It's great. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the trustees?
I have a question. First, a comment. I love this program and I send students over a lot, especially when I was teaching first year seminar. It was like, this exists. My question though is whether you're seeing like a wide swath of our students utilizing this program, or is this something that some of our students with more privileges are they're taking advantage of this more so? Like, is there any data that you have about who is taking this and what barriers other students might have to exploring an option like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say our patterns do reflect kind of what we're seeing as NSE nationally with other coordinators. So I think it's 57% of our students who participate in this program are Pell eligible. So we're definitely over half are Pell eligible, and about 75% receive any kind of financial aid. So definitely students who aren't able to pay out of pocket are pursuing this program. That said, I do think just hearing the word study away or study abroad can, for some students, just automatically they think I can't do that, because I get this grant or, I don't have these extra funds. And so I'm trying to get to, reaching those students who think I just can't do it, but I want to, look through your financial aid package and work with you and figure out how this can happen. Because most likely it can, we just have to figure out how. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I'm trying to get more students aware of that, the fact that it's pretty accessible.
Trustee Mitchell, or Chair Mitchell, I think Trustee Larios has a.
Trustee Larios. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for this information. It's really fascinating. It's a great program for our students to take advantage of. And I was fascinated by that 2018 study. And I was just curious if there's some data around the students from WOU that have participated, what their success rate looks like, if it mirrors that 2018 study. And I know it's been a bit of time, so that data may not be available. I was just curious if it was.
Yeah, and I can look back at our previous students who did go on exchange, and I would say that that definitely reflects. I don't have the exact numbers, but I have looked at it previously, especially after seeing that study. It was sent out by another coordinator, which I just found fascinating. And yeah, I would say the students that we have sent out, it definitely does align. We've actually also had a little bit of a sidebar, but we've actually had a couple students actually transfer to us because they came to us on exchange and then fell in love with the campus and ended up coming to be with us. And I've seen them get really involved in, extracurriculars or clubs, things like that. So again, finding those pieces to help them find community and retention. So yeah, it's really interesting to see.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a question. Thank you so much. The thing you raised in both that's like the through line is getting the word out, right? Getting the word out
Yes.
about rides, getting the word out about programs. Having been out of school for a very long time, what is the like the top modes? Like how are students getting information about new things, about programs? And this might be a question for you, but also for others, in terms of what those methods are these days.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've talked to students and I've tried different methods, and I think WOU is very different from other campuses. And I'm not sure if it's just because we're smaller than other universities, things like that. Posters, I've heard, is like the biggest way to get word out to students. I am here trying to on social media and all of that, and they're like, yeah, well, no, we don't really see that, but posters, they really see. So definitely having posters around campus has been helpful. And then this year, I actually do have an NSE intern. So it's a student who did exchange this past fall, and she's now helping me try other modes as well. So we're trying different tactics on social media, email campaigns. She's helping me with posters, and tabling as well is a big one. And I think what it really comes down to is students are craving that in-person connection. My guess would be that we're probably just scrolling mindlessly, and so they might see something but not really pay attention to it. Whereas if you see somebody at a table and looking friendly enough to talk to, you're maybe more likely to reach out. Or if you see a poster, you can email and it's not as scary, maybe things like that. So, but yeah, I think it's definitely different here than other places, which is interesting.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the trustees? Okay, well, seeing none, Cameron, thank you so much. Those are great presentations, incredible work for our students. And so thank you for leading those efforts.
Yeah,
Obviously,
thank you
they're
so
very
much.
valuable. Thank you. Okay, rolling into the next section on our agenda, we're really going to be looking at our strategic plans and the alignment to the university strategic plan. And so we will go through 3 presentations, stopping behind each one for questions and the opportunity to dialogue. And we will start with academic affairs.
And Jose, would you like me to share my screen?
That'll be great. Thanks, Evan. Thank you.
Yeah, one moment, please. I'm working on 3 screens here, so.
You need a 4th one then.
I know it gets
Make it
weird.
even.
The mouse movement gets weird when you have 3 screens. So, and don't worry, I'm gonna zoom in because I know it's gonna be hard to read. Can folks see that? I will zoom in. Is that better for folks? Do you want me to zoom in more?
I have one of my own here, so I just want to make sure everybody on Zoom can see it.
Or
More,
I'll zoom in
please.
to one.
More, please.
All right.
Is that helpful?
Does that work for everyone?
I can't read the writing, but we have it, and maybe you'll orient us to what's there.
Okay, thank you.
You
So
can open.
let's start a little bit with a little bit background of how this metric came together and the alignment. I want to thank Judy Silva and Jessica and our office and all of the academic affairs leadership in the provost office. As last year when academic affairs started a strategic plan, recognizing that we're also simultaneously launching a strategic plan for the university, we automatically started having a dialogue with across academic affairs of how do we align academic affairs strategic plan to the university's plans. And then more importantly, how do we help the rest of the units, the colleges and academic affair units across campus do something very similar as we align all the way up to the university plan. So this is the academic affairs, technically the provost office strategic plan that allows us to really think about how we invest in resources, how we support the university's plan, and then more importantly, how we can help all the other units in academic affairs across campus make that alignment. So if we look across the goals for our university, institutional sustainability, student success, and that's in the top line there, transformational diversity, community strength. On the left-hand column, you'll have the specific goals developed in academic affairs, excellence in teaching and learning, shared governance, and effectiveness and efficiency. None of these should be a surprise to any of us. This is why we exist as an institution, and it's an exciting work that we're doing here at Western Oregon University. One of the first areas that we're focusing on right now is really thinking about and exploring new teaching methods and really thinking about how our faculty, what tools our faculty need to really build institutional sustainability from an academic affairs perspective. So thinking about the modalities, learning opportunities for our students, creating dynamic, equitable learning environments for our entire community as a whole. So it kind of aligns to really thinking about the sustainability of our institution, which aligns to our accreditation, thinking about long-term sustainability and financial resources needed in order for us to make that happen. From a shared governance perspective, we are working very closely with not only across the university, but with Faculty Senate, and really exploring the role that faculty can play in shared governance, and the role that faculty affairs can play in helping us make informed decisions of our institution as we move forward that also align to sustainability. Resource allocation obviously is a critical one. I do have a faculty board member here, and most recently, academic affairs had to make a very difficult decision in resource allocations across the university, reducing the number of full-time, non-tenure track faculty allocations at Western Oregon University. And we continue to engage the various deans and the various faculty across the university to understand the impact of the reduction in resource allocations. Shared governance also builds and fosters a sense of trust and respect of how we can collectively move Western Oregon University forward, and thinking again to our accreditation language that existed in the last plan, and more importantly, in their forthcoming visit in the next few months to Western. And then, of course, effectiveness and efficiency. How can we be more efficient? So one of the major elements that was agreed upon in the collective bargaining agreement between Western Oregon and the faculty labor union was thinking about manageable workloads for our faculty and what that looks like, and really thinking about streamlining the process of how we develop workloads for our faculty on an annual basis. From a student success column for academic affairs, for me as a provost, and I think I've shared this consistently, I want to see an increase in four-year graduation rates. Our four-year graduation rates hovers about 47%. I need to see that go up. So we're trying to really work collectively to think about how our curriculum can be delivered, how we provide the resources our students need to ensure a four-year graduation rate. iPads, for the most part, and most institutions of higher education have moved away from a four-year graduation rate. They focus predominantly on a six-year graduation rate. And there's language now moving that iPad's needle even to an eighth-year graduation rate. I struggle, ethically, I struggle with the concept of an institution not being able to provide the resources students need to graduate in less than 6 years. The longer they're here, the more it's going to cost them to graduate. It's not like tuition's going down. Tuition will continue to go up. From an academic affairs as well, thinking about student success, if we look at shared governance, developing effective programs and services to attract and retain our students at Western Oregon University. And attracting students to Western and retaining students to Western continue to be a challenge that all of our regionals are challenged with. The birth rates in the state of Oregon have continued to decline, so have graduation rates. So I think as a regional, we have to be really understanding of what is the workforce dynamics that exist in the state of Oregon. Who are we attracting as a prospective student to our institution, and then implement best practices in the enrollment and admissions side of the house to make sure that whoever we admit, we have the resources to support and they have an opportunity to be retained and graduate. And we're doing some really remarkable work across campus, and I applaud all of our staff and our faculty. If we just look at this last fall from year to year, we've actually increased our retention by 4%. So we're at 93 year to year. So we're actually moving in the right direction as an institution, and I think we can continue to get better as the more we use data to make informed decisions about Western Oregon University. Thinking about transformational diversity, again, having faculty engage and exploring the various methodologies and equitable mechanisms of how we teach courses and how we engage our students. We continue to think about what role can academic affairs play in this. So one of the things that we just launched this past year is a Provost Fellows program for faculty. So I have targeted projects that I don't have the resources, human capital resources in the provost office. So we've created a Provost Fellows program in the provost office that now can spearhead some of these initiatives across campus. So we started with a mentorship program, and I have another faculty working on the teaching evaluations across campus, because otherwise there's not enough capacity in the provost office to take on all these various projects. So the goal is that every year I will have 1 or 2 faculty who want to take the lead, who can work directly with the provost office to make some of these remarkable changes on campus. And then if we look at developing or strengthening community from an academic affairs strategic plan, again, building on our faculty strengths and assets, really advancing what our faculty need and thinking about the role that faculty play, investing in their professional development, thinking of opportunities for faculty to also move up if they choose to take on leadership roles, thinking about our own division chairs and how we can invest in strengthening not only the Western Oregon community, but the impact that we have an institution across our region. And then if we are looking at effectiveness and efficiency as one of our goals aligned to the community and strength, really thinking about the report satisfaction and experience. So what are we doing with the data that we collect? So we gather all this information from students, we're gathering information from faculty. We have, I call it a mini IR office. We have an institutional research office that's not fully operational at the moment. We're getting in that direction. We still need 1 more staff member as a senior analyst. So then we could actually, as an IR office, really support the decision-making process across the university. Right now, it's typically utilized and has historically been utilized to gather data to submit reports to either IPEDS or to the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, but hasn't been utilized to its capacity, or at least what I've experienced with IR offices, as a tool utilized to make informed decisions for the university. And that's the direction that we're hoping that we could get the IR office to be, an asset and a tool for our entire community here at Western to make informed decisions so we can make our community stronger. And then thinking about graduates from Western and the impact that they have in our community, the role and the collaboration between peers, faculty, and staff, thinking about research projects. We have a really strong undergraduate research agenda and program with Pure here at Western Oregon University. We want to highlight the creative endeavors that our students bring to campus, the theater programs, similar to the impact that athletics has and student affairs has in our community. The impact that our students have in collaboration with our faculty is really remarkable for the size of our institution. So I'm going to hit pause. Questions?
Thank you so much. What questions do the trustees have? Yes, I see one.
That
Thank
me?
you.
Trustee Showalter?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of questions. As you kind of mentioned, there's a lot of concern that I'm sure you know about as well, among faculty, and some of the concerns that I'm hearing about some of the just about some of the policies more in general, and a couple of the ones in particular, are concerns about sort of the shared governance process. You kind of talked about the necessity of cuts, and I think that's fairly obvious at this point, especially ahead of our upcoming visit for accreditation. And so there definitely are necessary cuts that need to be made. But I think some of the concerns that I hear among faculty involve just sort of the impact that is felt for our student population and our ability to support students. So, for example, with drastic cuts to faculty, some of the things that we work really hard at, like high impact practices and community partnerships, those types of things that are really labor intensive, tend to be much more difficult to complete. But we also know that those are tied to retention issues, moving students through degree programs with limited or different options than they started from. And then I think the discussions about shared governance in terms of understanding the impacts of cuts after they're already made, as opposed to a shared process where we say, this is what we think we would cut, tell me the impact, and making a decision with the knowledge of, okay, so if I have this faculty level, this is what's off the table. Let's make a more informed choice. Not feeling like they're participating actively, or their positions are being sought out in the process of the cuts, or the downsizing, or the new priorities of which programs are growing and which are not, et cetera. And so I was wondering if you could speak to some of those concerns that I'm hearing from faculty.
Sure. Thank you for that question. And obviously not easy decisions that are being made at the moment. So let me see if I address it from a shared governance perspective, more importantly, because I think that's the question. So deans were instructed to work, and division chairs were instructed to work closely with their deans to address the necessity allocations of non-tenure track faculty, while also taking into consideration their classroom sizes, thinking of the new workload within the collective bargaining agreement, and to come back to the provost office with technically two different scenarios. So I have a scenario that was created by division chairs with a number of non-tenure track faculty allocations. Then I have a scenario that was created by the deans based on the data the deans have of their colleges and understanding of the colleges. Then I have a different scenario, which was created by the provost office independently, that looks at, this is our reduction in budget allocations for academic affairs for next year because of, a decade of declining enrollment and WCCU and so forth. And I call that the worst case scenario for academic affairs. And then there is what we ended up allocating. So if we've received an enormous amount of information, maybe not every single faculty participated in that process, but faculty and divisions had the opportunity to engage their deans to gather that data. Then my responsibility, obviously, as a provost, is to try to find hopefully a middle ground, minimizing the impact. And I think to your earlier statement, which is how do we continue to function as an institution? How do we continue to make sure students graduate on a timely manner? Like for me, I struggle with these decisions that we're having to make because I'm the first one to say we need to graduate students in 4 years. How do we do that with less resources I think is a challenge. But I think it could also be an opportunity to evaluate who we are, the identity of Western Oregon University. What do we want to become with limited resources and less resources from the state every year? At the same time, reevaluating is the way that we're offering our degrees, is the general education the best model that exists? Do we need to continue to offer as many undergraduate certificates and undergraduate minors, given that we continue to have a declining enrollment? So I'm hoping that as I gather data that it is an opportunity for the community to share that information with their deans and their division chairs, and then they come back to me. Throughout this week, what I have spent most of my week is having individualized meetings with division chairs who've emailed the dean and myself and saying, there's no way we could offer our curriculum with this level of allocation. And we sit down and we look at the data and we're trying to program through it. But the reduction exists, unfortunately, because as an institution, we've had a significant reduction in state investments and a significant reduction in enrollment. And now we're trying to figure out how do we best move forward while still serving the needs of the student population that we have.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Please.
Okay. I think in your report and in a couple of reports from this month, there's the just really ongoing reality of funding of all education, including higher ed, that we're being asked to do more and serve students more with fewer and fewer resources. And so, like we need to have all of these support services, and we need to have administrators who can do this reporting process, and we need to have faculty who can, teach in these really intensive ways that we know are tied to retention. And so with the understanding that I think everybody at this university is being asked to do more with less, can you speak to the concerns I'm hearing among faculty that when we propose these cuts to course offerings, and faculty tend to be the ones that we hear a lot, right? Like, we need to cut classes, we need to cut these things. And maybe comment on how we continue to engage in these really high impact practices that we know are good for our students, right? With the resources that we have. And I say that, but I think a lot of departments across campus aren't even concerned about that. They're concerned about just even basically being able to offer a curriculum that moves students toward graduation. So the do more with less that impacts us all, I think, is being felt in this moment, particularly hard with faculty. And I'm wondering if you can speak to how we're supposed to move forward with that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it's not an easy request to do more with less, and a model that I've never believed in. I think I am not asking people to do more with less. What I really want to have a meaningful conversation is, how do we do what's right, given the population size that exists at Western Oregon University? I think what I'm asking as a provost is for us to really dive into meaningful conversations of how do we potentially merge programs, sunset programs. The problem for us to even have a conversation about sunsetting programs, trustee, is that we don't even have policies and procedures of how to sunset programs. I think it's a difficult conversation, but I think one that must be had at Western Oregon University, which is, how do we reevaluate our curriculum and our curriculum delivery, given the population that we have? We have 100 on the books. I have 132 programs for 3,000 students. That's more than OSU. And I think that's a reckoning that we have to kind of realize, that we are offering more programs than potentially are needed for the population that we have. We're also making, I want to share, because I know, faculty feel right now, because I'm the one that went out and sent out this message, faculty feel the blunt of this, but on the backside of it, I'm also making decisions from an administrative side, right? So we didn't renew an institutional research analyst that we need. We didn't fill the graduate dean that we need, right? So we're making also other administrative decisions to pause other hires to minimize the impact of non-renewing contracts across the Western. The message I sent and the reduction in full-time equivalency of non-tenure track faculty is allowing us to embrace and engage in a really difficult conversation that I'm not sure we could have had in an earlier time. And I wish it was a different modality. But we have really difficult decisions to make, I think, as an institution in the next year, in order for us to align to our 5-year goals. So I'm not asking for people to do more with less. I want to make sure that that's clear. I think what I'm asking is for us to reevaluate what we are capable of doing as a university. And I'm not sure that we're currently capable of doing everything we're doing as a university. We don't have the resources to do everything we're doing right now.
I can only speak to myself, but I think I've definitely got the message that some of the programs are not being supported and some, are likely to be sunset. Is there going to be a process in which faculty are involved in the decisions to merge and sunset programs? What does that look like, and what role do faculty play in that?
Thank you, Dan. So my next steps, so actually by the end of this week, I am developing a provost budget advisory council. This is not the only area that as a provost I have to reduce in our expenditures. There's a lot of other areas that have other impacts across the institution. So I'm creating a faculty advisory committee to work directly with me and the associate provost in academic affairs. So should be launching that call. And hopefully by the end of this week, I've got the charge and everything ready. And then the next step is to us as an institution, closely with Faculty Senate, develop policies and procedures of what mergers of programs would look like. We have no mechanism at the moment, at least language. We have mechanisms. We don't have the language to guide our faculty to engage in a meaningful conversation in Senate of how potential mergers would look like and how potential sunsets, if they're required, will look like. And I'm not willing to engage in that conversation at the moment with Senate until we actually have policies and procedures that our faculty will have an opportunity to weigh in and vote and implement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What other questions do trustees have? I have one while we're all thinking, kind of what is some of the timeline of this work and some high level targets? Can you walk through that for us?
For sure. So I've got two major dean searches happening right now. So I have a dean of the College of Liberal Arts vacancy, or not vacancy, I have an interim that we're doing a national search. We just launched a dean for the College of Education as well. So in order for collectively for this to really pan out, I need two robust strategic plans in those two colleges. And it's best to have incoming deans develop their strategic plan for their colleges, working together with faculty. The last thing you want is at the last minute, two outgoing deans developing a strategic plan and then two new deans coming in and having to implement it. So I think it's important for these two new deans. So the way we've outlined in academic affairs, some of the other units are already feeding into this. So in academic affairs, we actually have a working document where periodically all of our direct reports have an opportunity to feed and give us data points of how we're actually achieving these goals. Long-term goal would be to have, and I think I've shared this with this group, is to have a dashboard where the public can actually see the progress that we're making in our strategic plan across the various units. So for me, looking at this from that 35,000 foot elevation, I would feel extremely comfortable that we would have concrete data to be able to say we're actually moving in the right direction and be able to evaluate the direction within the next year. So probably by this time next year, we should have enough data to be able to inform us. The colleges might take longer because we've got deans that are coming starting late June, early July. Their strategic plans and conversations with faculty won't begin until faculty come back into contract. So that's September. So we probably won't see college strategic plans until January of next year. Does that give you a kind of a timeline?
Yeah, thank you. Can you tell us about the timeline for reductions that have been mentioned?
Some are, well, so the reductions that have been mentioned, so for those trustees that have not seen it, I sent an email to first the faculty labor union and then to all of our deans of what their full-time non-tenure track allocations were this year. Historically, the academic affairs budgets for about 55 full-time non-tenure track faculty members. The allocation was reduced to 40, I have the number here, sorry, 46 for fall of 25. But the reality is that at Western Oregon University, we actually have roughly 84, sorry, I had to keep looking back at my numbers, 84 non-tenure track full-time faculty. And I say full-time, anyone that has 0.5 FTE or above. And what has happened historically, even though we have budgeted for 55, what has happened historically at Western is an adjunct, a part-time contract faculty member, ends up with another course allocated, and they're teaching another course, and that bumps them above 0.5 to FTE. So it's not the 0.5 FTE that becomes a challenge for us as an institution, is that as soon as they go above 0.5 FTE, they're benefit eligible. So now we're also having to cover 0.5 FTE salary plus full benefits. It's not like we'll cover half of the benefit eligibility. So when you look at that collective investment and cost is something that's prohibitive given our budget model and 5-year sustainability plan in academic affairs. I had received guidance and kind of a target of what our budget would look like for next academic year. We had been in conversations with WUFT, which is the faculty labor union, of the potential implications. Then within our collective bargaining agreement, there was a deadline or a timeline that I needed to let the union know what the allocations would be for the following year. So unlike the rest of the university that wasn't kind of put into a time constraint, academic affairs was put in a time constraint because of the collective bargaining agreement. So I had to inform the union. But it would not behoove of any of us to inform the labor union and not inform the rest of the university. So I had to do both at the same time, which has obviously created an enormous amount of stress for many individuals who've been here for a long time, and many that we depend to kind of deliver the curriculum that we have today. So what that means is that we're almost looking at close to a 40% reduction in non-tenure track full-time equivalency by fall of 25.
Thank you for that information. That's quite significant.
It is. And they've been notified. Well, let me pause. Non-tenure track faculty have not been notified. So there's a really important clarity that I need to make here. We actually created language in the collective bargaining agreement that if a unit had an allocation, let's say of one faculty member, and all they needed or all they had within that unit was that one faculty member, that faculty member will automatically receive a 1-year contract. But if a unit received one allocation, they say they had 3 faculty members in that unit, and these are non-tenure track. These are not compared to tenure track faculty. If they have 3 and I only allocated 1, and then there has to be an HR process of them applying for that position. There has to be a job description developed. Many of our non-tenure track faculty do not have job descriptions, so we have to create job descriptions. Then we have to post it because they're internal searches. So we have to post them for a minimum of 5 days according to Oregon law. And then the 3, if they choose to, have to apply. And then a subcommittee within either the division or the college will have to provide recommendations to the dean of which of the 3 will end up with that position. So right now, what the deans and the division chairs have been instructed to do is to, 1, we need to identify a job description for all these faculty in these various divisions, and then create a committee process and then post positions unless the allocation is equal to the number of the individuals that they have. So the library is a perfect example. There were 2 non-tenure track faculty members in the library. That was exactly their allocation. So we did not have to go through a committee process. And I just need to make that clarifications because I did hear from a non-tenure track faculty member send President Peterson an email and said, I just lost my job. And I was like, well, how is that possible? But, unfortunately, I think what has occurred is some folks have either not adhered to the guidance or have developed their own conclusions. And we want to make sure that we adhere to the collective bargaining agreement guidance and language that how we best move forward.
Thank you so much. I know there's a lot of complexity around this, and obviously it's incredibly impactful for the team. So thank you for giving the information.
You're welcome.
Being sensitive to some of our time, I just want to ask any committee members any follow-up questions before we move on to our next area of strategic planning. Okay, seeing none, we will go to athletics. Thank you.
Right, I will share the screen, Randy. Give me
Thanks,
one.
Evan.
And then we're gonna zoom in.
All right, well, this is my first time to work on a strategic plan that actually asked to be aligned with the university strategic plan. So it's been challenging, and I want to say that I think ours is still a work in progress. We came up within our department with our 4 goals, and that was really to really take a good look at our business operations, practices, policies, our budgeting, how we track and monitor all of that. And I think that really falls within the institutional sustainability. Our budget has continued to, or our expenses have continued to increase. And so we're just really working hard to take a very close look at all of our programs and how our spending trends are going, and trying to figure out if there's ways that we can reduce. And then also looking at ways to find additional outside funding. As I told our incidental fee committee last night, it's hard to fundraise for bus trips and socks and things, but it's pretty easy to fundraise for scholarships. And so one of our things is really trying to increase our funding for scholarships so that we're able to spend some of our lottery funding that comes from the state on operations. So that's a little bit of an aside, but that's just really doing a close look at all of our business ops and our travel arrangements and all of that. Our second goal is really focusing on our academics and life skills, and then just being sure that we are using our campus resources for academic success. We're so fortunate to have the new Student Success Center and have worked very closely with Success and Advising for years, but just making sure that we're utilizing those resources and our students are really understanding what's available to them. And that falls into what Provost Cole was talking about with graduation rates. Our graduation rates have continued to increase. Our academic success rate has continued to rise. And so just really focusing on making sure that we're providing the support that student athletes need to continue their successes and graduation. For the first time this year, both of our men's and women's teams were cumulative GPAs over 3.0, so that was really exciting. Our women's teams have traditionally been pretty high, but sometimes our men's teams have struggled, so we're getting there. Our third goal is really looking at our operations and compliance, not just NCA compliance, but all of the Title IX compliance and all of the different rules and regulations that not only student athletes follow, but also our staff. The Division II focuses life in the balance, and so really making sure that we're looking at letting our students have other opportunities on campus and not dominating their time with athletics, making sure that they have opportunities in the classroom, in other student engagement areas on campus. And I think really focusing on creating a safe environment. I think our game day environment has been great, but really getting our students to be leaders on it in the department and in the community. And then the fourth goal is our team performance. And I think of that as like our medical, our athletic training, our sport performance, our mental health resources, and that type of support. And so breaking it into those 4 areas, I've really, I mean, this is where I struggled a little bit, because I feel like almost everyone falls within all 4 of the areas. I think in, athletics, the diversity piece is I checked every box there. I feel like, because I feel like that's such a big part of our department. We're about 50% non-white for our student makeup, and in some cases, like for our Black students on campus, close to 55% of Black students on our campus are in athletics. So I think really thinking about how athletics provides not just affinity spaces, but also just community and support and resources, both academically, but also through athletic aid for some of our diverse populations. We've, I think, I kind of lost my train of thought, sorry. Within our community, I believe both on and off campus, that athletics has continued to grow within the community. And I just am kind of continuing to look for ways to document those outcomes, I think has been the hardest part for me. I think, I don't know, maybe I need to work with Tina a little bit in student affairs, because I think student engagement, I think that we're a little more similar. I've struggled with this matrix a little bit, but yeah, I think that we're moving in the right direction. I think our biggest area that we really need to focus on are the business operations, and really making sure that our budget is used efficiently, and that our coaches are held accountable, and that we're looking for continued funding sources. So that's what I have today. I know that was kind of a ramble. Sorry. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions or comments by the trustees? Thank you so much, Randy.
Thank you.
Let me stop sharing my screen for a second to turn to the next one.
Okay, so seeing none, we will roll into student affairs then.
And Chair, I just want to apologize for the there was clearly some conversion font issues when I converted things from Google to PDF, and we'll make sure when this is published for the world to see that that's fixed.
Great, thank you, Evan. I appreciate it.
Oh, Google. Well, hello. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time to talk about the Student Affairs strategic plan. I do want to acknowledge Judy Silva, who created this incredible alignment spreadsheet that we adapted for our needs in Student Affairs to see how our strategic plan could align with the university's strategic plan. And also Cameron, she downplays her role in student affairs, but we could not be student affairs without Cameron Mortensen, who does a lot of really great work for us. So kudos to her, because she has also created an alignment sheet for our departments in student affairs to align their plans to our plan to the university's plan. So follow the bouncing ball, but Cameron has brought it all together. When I think about strategic planning, and I think about the university experience for students, certainly academics is our highest priority, right? Is creating that excellent academic experience for our students. Students can only be successful, though, if they have the right supports around them. And we can't always rely on just our faculty, who do an amazing job of supporting students. We can't just rely on them to support our students and their efforts to thrive in the classroom. And so, you know, student affairs and athletics bring together then that concept of a thriving community, comprehensive university experience for our students. And if we didn't have those two areas, then I'm not sure that our students would be successful. And student affairs really embraces the message that we use at Western, which is where you belong. So I want to just kind of hit some highlights of our strategic priorities and our strategic plan and how it aligns with the university's plan. And I also want to couch this in the description that our plan is very much a broad-based strategic plan to give guidance to our departments, because our departments are the folks who are on the ground, you know, doing the work, creating the programs, creating the opportunities for our students. So we've essentially created the framework for our departments to follow. And, you know, student affairs plays an essential role in advancing the strategic goals of the institution. Most of, if not all of our activities and initiatives are student-centered and contribute to Western's vision of fostering a diverse, collaborative, and as I said, thriving community. And so as we created this alignment, we were able to really connect to the university's plan based on our goals. And our goals, we had a retreat. The student affairs directors had a retreat in August where we identified what we wanted our goals to be. And we're looking at this as essentially a 3-year plan. And our first goal being holistic student development. I would say that is the primary reason why we are here, is to help students grow and develop, not only academically, but personally, professionally, emotionally, all the ways that they can develop. We're here to support them in that effort. And our objectives outline some of those things. And within student development, I don't know if it was Randy that mentioned it, but this is a fluid process. We are likely going to update this strategic plan on an annual basis, just to make sure that we're following the roadmap that we outlined, and things change. Priorities change. So there may be some adjustments to our goals as we work through the next 3 years. And certainly, you know, unknown to us are the impacts of changes in leadership at the state and federal level that could really change the way we do some of our work. But in the end, the focus will be on student development and student growth and student retention and student success. So we identified some things through our holistic student development goal that we felt aligned really nicely with the university's strategic plan, including wellness and readiness programs for students to prepare them not only for being successful academically, but also what to expect after graduation, and how can we get them in the best position possible to be successful after they leave this really supportive, engaging community. So that's certainly one objective for us. We also want to build on the support programs that we have in place to make sure that students have access to the resources that help them grow, not only as students, but as humans. And then create opportunities for students to be mentored and coached to build their leadership skills, and also understand that learning doesn't end here, that they will continue to learn after they leave the university. So it's the idea of helping them build their critical thinking skills and stay engaged as essentially lifelong learners in not just at Western, but beyond Western. So student development, which is, when I think about many of the professionals in student affairs, many of us have master's degrees or degrees in student development and have learned a lot about student development theory and how that applies to the work that we're doing with our students. Our second goal, and probably is like hand in hand with the first one, is about student engagement. And you've likely heard from the president that he wants to see a more thriving and interactive campus community. So do we. I think about what this university was like pre-COVID, and I want to get back there. I want to create opportunities for students to feel like they have a way to get engaged in whatever it is that interests them. So we really focused in our retreat on talking about creating leadership development opportunities. So students not only are engaged, but they're building skills that they can carry through their lives. I've been doing this work for, I don't even want to say how long, but a long time. And I think about the students that I get to reconnect with, who I've worked with over the years. And they always go back to, if I hadn't been fill in the blank, an RA, a student government leader, involved in a club, I'm not sure I'd be where I am today without that experience. That says something, and it means something to me and to the folks in student affairs. And I carry that same story. Some of you have heard my story of as being a first generation college student, not really knowing my way, but once I got involved, my my path was started as a result of that experience. So this is a really meaningful part of the work that we do and has an impact on student retention and graduation rates. We're also really focused on creating some student-centered spaces that help students feel like they belong, that they are a part of this institution. And essentially taking the lead on that is our Office of Student Engagement, as they look at the university center and they identify spaces to promote that, that concept that, this is a place where this is my living room. This is a place I can come and study. I can gather with my friends. I can grab a cup of coffee and have that intimate conversation with someone. So it's a really important component of the work that we do. And not just in the university center, but in a lot of our spaces on campus. We also want to build on those activities that are offered on campus and encourage students to get involved in extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities. I talked a little bit about just that involvement piece. And that is the number one way to keep students interested and retained at the university, is to get them involved in something beyond the classroom. There's a relationship that's developed that keeps them here and also provides additional support services for students. Transformational diversity, I think both Dr. Cole and Randy talked about how important this component is to the work that we do, and it's absolutely essential for student affairs to engage in promoting inclusive learning environments and creating those spaces where students feel included, that they feel respected, that they can engage in leadership and decision-making processes that promote diversity of thought, participation, engagement. And so we need to own that, and we own that as a division, that these are things that we will do so that students feel valued and included at the institution. And I feel like, again, I think about what Randy said about being a partner in this. I think we're all partners and working together as opposed to working separately. And President Peters has done a great job, I think, of breaking down silos so that we're working together to support the initiatives around transformational diversity, creating a respectful and inclusive campus. And then organizational investment, which is a little bit different than maybe what I thought we were going to create as a goal when I first went into our retreat. But as we talked about what the needs are in our division, we recognize that we kind of take our employees and our student leaders and our student employees for granted. You get a job and, you know, you get trained and then you move on. And the reality is that it still takes work. It's like a relationship, right? You don't just start a relationship and not do anything to tend to that relationship. And so for us, this was very important as far as attracting and retaining talented staff, and not just employees, not full-time employees, but also student staff, and creating opportunities for people to learn more in their positions, to build their skills, to celebrate them when they move on to another type of position that gives them even more challenges and more experiences. And so this investment in our people is absolutely critical to the success of our division. And then ongoing professional growth and support to help them adjust what they know, learn more of what they know so that we can be responsive to what student needs are. The needs of students today are very different than the needs of students even 10 years ago. And so another very important part of the work that we're doing and the focus that we have on building our teams. And then managing our resources. And you know, it goes back to previously what the provost was talking about in terms of our financial resources and how we utilize those resources to not only build our programs, but critique our programs and make sure that we're providing the right kind of supports for our for the different programs that we offer for our students. Something that we were doing, you know, 4 years ago may not have the same impact now that it did then. And how are we adjusting the resources that we use, the people and the positions that we have, and make adjustments to meet the needs not only of our students, but of the institution, with the end goal being that our students are successful, that they're retained, that they graduate, and that they're successful after they leave. So, you know, I would say our strategic plan is well aligned with the university's strategic priorities. We're fostering holistic student development. We're enhancing our student engagement, promoting transformational diversity, and ensuring organizational investment. So I feel like our efforts are to contribute to this vision of a thriving, inclusive, sustainable community, recognizing that we will adjust as we need to, but all the while keeping the students at the center of the work that we do. So that's a quick overview of what we're doing. And I want to just remind ASAC that this strategic plan is essentially the guide for our departments to map their plans to, that will then be connected to the university's strategic plan. I'm happy to take questions. And Randy, it's easy to ramble. You just get on a soapbox and you just start talking about your program.
It was great. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? just a comment while committee members are thinking of any questions or comments. I just really appreciate, Tina, you reviewing this with us, and it's clear to see the alignment with the overall organizational strategic plan. What kind of timeline are you thinking of, Tina, as your team works on kind of incorporating and doing multiple layers of planning?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And I did have the note to mention that our departments are currently working on their strategic plans. Due to Melissa and me by the end of the second week of March. And then we'll review those with each of the directors to make sure that the alignments make sense, and then start setting timeline goals, right? For how we implement some of these strategies. And we can't do everything all at once, right? And so what are our priorities going to be? I think we'll probably get, feedback from our students. If those departments aren't already seeking feedback from students, we'll definitely want our students to weigh in on what's going to be most meaningful for them. But it will start with a dialogue in the spring of all of our strategic plans and what we want to prioritize first in terms of strategies. And then, as I mentioned, this is essentially built as a 3-year plan, but knowing that we will make adjustments as we go along.
Thank you. It's
You're
open
welcome.
for any committee members' questions or comments about either this strategic plan or any others that have come up as we've listened to these great presentations and thoughts.
Chair, if I may, I do want to say that senior leadership is going to be meeting a couple times over the next before our large board meeting, and I think you could plan on the president giving you an update of the full strategic plan process. Obviously, you've heard from our 3 of our leaders here about their plans for their individual divisions. And I think he's going to spend some time kind of weaving in how it's connecting with the overall, and then making sure that especially the areas that don't have direct committees to report to are also you have some perspective and some vision over their plans as well, so that you aren't out of the loop on those. So I did want to mention that so you can come to expect that for our February board meeting.
Fantastic, very helpful context. Thank you.
I also wanted to mention, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
And it's tied to your question that you asked, Chair Mitchell, about, what are some, what's the timeline? What are some things that you're putting into place? And I want to give you an actual example and something that's in my report that I submitted. So one of the challenges that we've been faced with is the financial sustainability of our bookstore. The need for books from a bookstore has changed dramatically in the last decade. We are competing with so many other resources where students, seek their textbook materials and course materials. And so one of the things that we are currently in the process of is evaluating requests for proposals to take over management of the bookstore, outsourcing the bookstore, which is a big change at Western because our auxiliaries pride themselves in managing their, self-managing operations on campus. But this is one that's we just don't have the right personnel in place to manage this kind of resource on our campus in a way that's efficient and financially sustainable. So my hope is that I'll have more of an update for this group in the next couple of weeks in terms of the direction that we're going. But this is one of those organizational investment pieces, right? Like we have to start making some difficult financial decisions so that we are more efficient in how we operate. This is one of them as an example, with more details to come.
It's a very helpful example. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, seeing no questions or additional comments from the committee today, I think we're at the end of our time and we'll get 15 minutes back. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for a great meeting, exceptional presentations. Thank you so much for the thoughtfulness that you're putting into the presentations and obviously the very difficult work for our incredible students. So thank you for your commitment. And have a great afternoon, everyone. We'll meeting adjourned at 2:56. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, it was
Bye.
wonderful to see you wonderful humans.
Good to see you
too,
too.
Hunter. Bye.